This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Welcome, everyone, to Behind the Human. I am your host, Mark Champagne, and it is my job to unpack the stories and mental fitness practices of just remarkable humans living at the top of their game personally and professionally. And we have one of those gems here today, Erin Claire Jones. She's one of the world's leading experts in human design. I'm super excited to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So Erin, we're totally going to geek out on human design and everything that revolves around that world, because it's, I know it's been so impactful for you, obviously, and you've turned it into your career or vocation as well. I shared a little bit before we started recording how profound it's been for me, and I would say I consult with my human design at this point. Like it's made a transition to it's a daily thing. It's not like I'm just checking in every so often. It's pretty built into at least my operating flow in the way that I work. So it's been so helpful. So I can't wait to get into that. But before we do, just to kind of clear out titles and bios and all of that kind of stuff, I always like to ask every guest the same question, and that's just, who are you?
Gosh, I would say the identity, I mean, we have so many identities, but I think the identity that feels the most present right now is that I'm a mother. I'm a mother to two really young girls, a 2.5-year-old and a 9-month-old as of yesterday. And
Congrats.
thank you so much. It's been so fun and hard and fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a 3 and 9-year-old. I totally
No
understand.
way. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh. What a journey. So,
Yeah.
it's so funny. I think that before children, I feel like so much of my identity was very much wrapped up in my work and as a human design guide and teacher and all the things. And I feel like becoming a mother has just reminded me that like there are just so many versions of me, mother
Yeah.
and friend and daughter and wife and all the things. So yes, I'm a mother. I am now a new author. I teach about a system that I really love, and I live in the Hudson Valley from the West Coast. And yeah, I think like I'm really just learning so much about myself and becoming a mother right now, and also through my work with human design, of course.
Yeah, I love it. So why, if someone's just tuning in right now and they're like, okay, I want to stick around to the end, but I want to know a little bit of like, what am I going to get out of this? Like, why should we, just high level, why should we care about human design?
Mhm. I think that a lot of us are kind of on autopilot in our lives, and we're kind of going through the motions of what we think we're supposed to be doing and the path we think we're supposed to be walking. And I think human design kind of stops the train a little bit and helps us
Yeah.
reflect on who are we really and how are we meant to navigate this world? How are we meant to make decisions? How are we meant to find opportunities? Like, how are we meant to navigate the challenges that show up persistently and yet that continue to be there? And then how are we here to leverage our strengths? So I think, the point in learning human design and staying is to really just become acquainted with your own energetic map in
Yeah.
terms of how you're meant to operate the world in a way that really works for you and also in a way that's totally unique to you. I think human
Mhm.
design is a mystical assessment for those that are new based on our time, date, and place of birth. But I think it reminds us more than anything that we're all wired to operate so differently. And the more we
Yeah.
really kind of lean into our own operating system, the more flow we'll find in every part of our lives. And also, if you're a total skeptic tuning in too, I would also encourage you to just kind of listen and see what the different archetypes are and see if there's a one that you resonate with, because I think it offers us, again, just a really interesting pause to think about our lives and how we can navigate each decision and each step a little bit more intentionally.
I'm glad you brought up the skepticism, because and I know you were a skeptic. I was a skeptic. I think we're both your projector as well,
Yeah.
right? And I have to say, because I was a skeptic, but thankfully because of this podcast, I mean, I've just been exposed to so many beautiful, modalities and practices and perspectives and so forth that at least for me, I'm forced to be open. And I am so happy that I was open to this one, because what I would say, as I guess a skeptic coming into it and having done a lot of different just assessments, I guess you could say, about like my makeup and so forth, this was the one when it landed that just I feel like my physical reaction was something like "Oh, okay." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's totally me, and for me, it gave me permission to be okay that I wasn't doing everything exactly, especially in, like, the startup world or business world. Like, I wasn't doing everything exactly how the formula, let's just say, is kind of, taught to us in different ways. I mean, there's different use cases, but there were clear moments where I'm like, I just that doesn't really resonate with me. Like, it feels like kind of icky to be doing, a bunch of cold outreach or something as an example, as
Yeah.
a projector. And like I never knew why. Just
Mhm.
knew it felt off, and then almost, would kind of like negatively bash myself for like in terms of self-talk, like, well, you're supposed to do this, but like it doesn't feel right. And now you're forcing through and so forth. So when I got my profile, it's like, oh, it kind of gives you the permission to be yourself.
Totally.
And how relieving is that?
The most, I think that
Right?
what I love so much about human design is that I think it doesn't tend to tell us anything new. It just kind of reminds us of the things we already know, but have rarely given ourselves permission to step into. Like, it sounds
Yeah.
like upon learning your human design, it wasn't like, oh, what is this weird foreign language? It's like, oh, yes. Like, that's why this
Yes.
has been working. That's why this hasn't. And so, in my experience, I think that's why it tends to resonate with woo woo lovers and skeptics alike, because it just tends to speak in really like practical, grounded language, but it also tends to kind of speak to parts of ourselves that we just can't deny. And we're like,
Yeah.
oh, how would this weird system know this much about me and about how I create opportunities? And so it does tend to, I think, more than anything else, like you said, give people relief and give them so
Yeah.
much permission to pursue every area of their life in a way that feels so authentic and true to them, whether it's as a podcast host or business owner or father or friend or any of the things.
Yeah. Well, I just find, I mean, I it's a good point. It's not necessarily that there was a bunch of brand new things, but I actually don't want to kind of diminish that point because it was very kind of in my face, transformational in the sense I think it put words and use
Yes,
cases to things that I was feeling that I didn't have words for and so forth.
exactly.
And I for me, and this is why I'm really excited about this conversation as well. I mean, I still really only know kind of high level, like really what this is all about because I fully trust it because there was zero downside in
Yeah.
following the guidance. And whether that's for the next book or businesses and so forth, I'm like always consulting my human design is just like as a pulse check. So for those, and I put myself in this camp as well, that maybe have never heard of human design or just kind of skirted on the surface and maybe did a profile and haven't really gone further than that. Like what actually is it?
Mhm. So, human design is a system based on your time, date, and place of birth, like astrology. And it gives us kind of our energetic blueprint. And it basically lets us know how we're wired to navigate the world, whether it's how we're making decisions or structuring our day to day or creating opportunities. It's incredibly specific to us. There are 5 types, like there are kind of broader things, but everybody's chart is so distinct and so unique to them. But I
Yeah.
always say that human design is equal parts mystical and practical. Like it is, of course, mystical. It comes from our birth information. But I would say the information it outputs and offers us is incredibly practical and applicable to our day to day. And that's probably my favorite piece is that it doesn't just give us all this interesting information that can make us feel seen and give us language for things we've always felt but never known how to articulate. But I think equally, it gives us all these very practical tools that we can integrate in our day to day to experience pretty immediate change and transformation.
Mm. Who started it? I mean, I've heard you share a bit of the backstory of the on another show, but I think it'd be helpful as well over here.
Yes. Well, I'm going to just, begin that story by saying that it's a wild story. And for those
Yeah.
that are listening that are already skeptical, I also want to just remind you that, my approach to this system is that what matters most to me is not whether it's true, but whether it's useful. And so
Yeah.
I'm never trying to convince people of anything. Like I said, I think it offers us such a cool framework. And now having worked with many tens of thousands of people, I just feel like the usefulness can't be denied. And so
Yeah.
it's been fun to watch that. But human design has been around since 1987, so it's relatively new. It pulls from many different ancient systems like astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, like systems that have been around way longer. The founder's name was a man named Ra Ufuru. He's no longer alive, but he basically had a very mystical experience in 1987 in Ibiza, where he was
Mm,
walking home one night to his home and heard a voice, and the voice said, "It's time to work." And for basically
mm,
8 days and 8 nights, he channeled the system, meaning he just received all this information, and then he spent the next 20 years building out the system. So, it is not a system that came from him studying human behavior. It's something that came from something far more mystical than that. But the way that he received it was that human design pulls together so many ancient systems, like I said, from astrology to the I Ching, the Kabbalah to the chakra system, and it kind of all blends together to give us this real map to our own operating system. I think we don't
yeah,
really come into this life with a manual, and human design kind of gives us the manual.
yeah. I have to say, because this is all relatively new on my side as well, given the second book that I'm working on. And just for context, I'm interviewing leveraging technology. I'm interviewing ancient, samurai and Eastern teachers and indigenous elders that have long passed, but that have a lot of work, obviously, out in the world that you can pick up on. And I'm only sharing this because what has been so apparent that I just really didn't realize, because it's hard to see this until you really start putting all of the different cultures and traditions and religions and spirituality, all of it kind of together and seeing it kind of globally. All the people, like, pick your group, pick your guru or whoever, you resonate with or you're studying. Most of them have had some sort of unexplained, like, spiritual situation where they've seen something that we haven't seen and have been awarded a bunch of wisdom and so forth, and that has led them down the path. So I'm not surprised that this is how human design originated as well, because it seems to happen right across the board, right? And I only say that because, again, like, there's a lot of us that are skeptical of new things, but unless it's the thing that we're already following, and I just challenge everyone to think about, like, okay, well, whatever, whether it's a religion or in, different indigenous kind of stories and spirits and so forth, it's all the same kind of underpinning, and there's a lot of benefit to all of it, right? If you take the benefit. So,
Totally, totally. And I also just think it's a good reminder that, like, there's just so much we don't understand and so much we don't
oh
know. And,
yeah,
like, I think that, sometimes people will, like, kind of ask such penetrating questions around, like, how it all works and how we could ever know this much information. And, like, those are really, really good questions. And, like, for me, I just don't even pretend to know. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
am I am equally mystified by the fact that we could know this much information based on our birth time, and that a system and a voice, like, led to all this stuff. I'm just like, yeah, we can, like, look at the things and be like, okay, but the planets were here and neutrinos and all this stuff, and still, like, there's just a magic to it. There's just
yeah.
and I actually love that piece. I
Oh, it's
love that I
exciting.
can't really explain it.
Totally, and it keeps our curiosity in check, and
Yeah.
beautiful things come from that place. Okay, so take us back to New York City. I think you're having dinner, you were not doing this work, you met someone,
Yeah.
and, I mean, I was about to say kind of stance, but I mean, it's not really. I mean, I feel like it was kinda divine in a way. You were introduced to human design, and, I mean, essentially your whole life kind of pivoted or shifted, right?
It did. Yes. Yeah, so I was 10 years ago, I was 25 years old. I was living in New York City and at a friend's house, and sat next to a stranger who asked to read my human design chart. And I had never heard of human design. It was so fringe at the time. But I was at a moment in my career where, like, I was consulting for a number of different startups, and I was, like, having fun. And I also, like, didn't really feel like I was, like, on my path, but I was enjoying myself. But I was definitely open to any system that could give me insight into, like,
Sure.
what was going on and who I was. And so the stranger sat across from me and proceeded to give me the most accurate, insightful reading I'd ever received. I think, like you said, it really felt like it gave words to my inner workings in a way that I had never had language for. And I
Yeah.
think that people tend to have a couple different experiences with human design. One is very affirming. They're like, oh my God, thanks for just, like, validating the path that I've chosen. Amazing. And, like, then there's another side, which is really confronting. And that was
Oh,
the
interesting.
experience I had. And it wasn't confronting in a bad way. It was just that all the things he articulated about my design were the opposite of the choices that I made, were the opposite of the career that I was in, or the opposite of my community. And so he basically articulated a way of operating and moving through this world that felt far more natural to me, but was so not what I was choosing. So I had
Mm,
this really accurate, insightful, making me feel very seen, confronting experience. And he actually ended that conversation by saying, Erin, I think you're meant to do this. I think you're meant to share human design. And for him, it was really kind of, he had a really strong gut instinct about it. He also observed a lot of potential in my design, some of which you actually share, which is the ability to kind of really simplify complex ideas in a way that make them make sense. And
yeah.
he invited me to study with him. He'd been studying the system for a decade. And so that was how my human design journey began. Obviously, there have been a lot of twists and turns since then, but
Sure.
I don't know, like, as moved as I was by that experience and as clearly as I could see the potential of the system to really transform individuals and teams and relationships, I don't think I ever would have, like, considered it in the realm of possibility for me to build a career around it or even to study it. So, it's just one of those moments where I was like, "Can't believe that happened. I can't believe I met that person and
Yeah.
he introduced this to me," and this was, again, at a time when human design was super not cool, pretty out there. So
Well, so yeah, so like what happened next? I mean, you leave that experience. I mean, I can only imagine your mind just like really spinning and probably started asking some serious questions, I imagine, or the journal came out and it's like, okay, what, like, what do I do from here? And I guess that's the question is like, what was the next step? When did you actually embrace it and go for it?
well, I think that, to give a little bit more context into where I was, I had been working with a number of startups. I had written my thesis in college on impact driven entrepreneurship. I was kind of obsessed with just like teams and companies and how they worked. And I think that I was coming off an experience in my life where I worked with teams that I was really inspired by, but I also observed a lot of dysfunction. It felt like
Yeah.
nobody like really knew how to work together. And I always kind of became the person that people vented to. And so I was kind of in this moment where I was like, God, these people are amazing, but they like don't really know how to work together. And it just like, it's feeling really frustrating. And so when I was first introduced to human design, the application that made the most sense to me was bringing it to teams to help them better
Mm,
understand each other. So that was kind of the thing that initially clicked. So then I actually that my first teacher, Richard, he lived in LA and I had a ticket to LA the next week because I was going to LA and then I was going to Bali. And so I remember we met back up in LA. I wasn't like, oh my God, yes. After that first night, I was just like, okay, send me some things. He sent me some like massive PDFs. So I started like
yeah.
reading my PDFs and we started meeting in LA and he just started to kind of reveal to me all the ways in which human design could be used with teams, how it could be used to help us better understand each other, where the gaps are, where the skills are. And I was just really taken with it. I was just like, wow,
Yeah.
I was like, this just feels like it's kind of like a cheat code. Like it feels like it's revealing all the inner workings underneath everything. And if we know it, everything in our lives will be easier. And so it was during that time in LA, gosh, I don't know, I must have been there for a month or 2 that I was like, "This makes a lot of sense." So I actually ended up I don't remember whether I ended all the consulting gigs or whether they just ended, but, like, basically, it was kind of like a clear marker. It was just like those things were just in the past.
Yeah.
And, um, and that was when I said yes, and we started building together. And then I went to Bali,
Wow.
and we built together from there.
But how did you, I mean, because I do a lot of work with corporate teams when it comes to mental fitness and trying to bring in various tools and essentially getting people to helping people train their minds to work for them instead of against them. And even in with this work and this language around, I would say, performance to
Yes,
at least get people interested. And then, next thing you know, we're doing guided breathing and visualizations and gratitude work and like, trick them a little bit because then they're into it, right?
totally.
But it's still I find like a bit of a dance around language and having even organizations that say, "Hey, yeah, like we really want to bring in something interesting or different to help the team, but it's different." And
Mm,
it's like that's when you start to get into conversations like, "Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe."
yeah.
So I guess what historically worked for you and during those times, or even today, if you're doing any of that kind of work
Yeah.
to bring something new that's that's not the corporate way, let's just say.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that well, one I'll just say is that our business didn't work. We
Okay.
we we could not figure out a way to make it sustainable. I ended up walking away, starting my own practice. There's like a whole other journey
Yeah.
there, but our focus was exclusively focused on human design for business. But this was at a time in the world when no one knew what human design was. So we weren't even
Yeah.
using the language of human design in our marketing, which thinking back, I'm like, this must have been so confusing to people. It was like, this is a mystical tool, but we need your birth information. So like I would say that, like, at that time, we were kind of, like, pitching companies that we knew, and it like, people were really interested. It was very helpful with the people that said yes, but it's just, like, not really something I learned that you can really, like, convince people of. Like,
Yeah.
it just felt like it kind of has to be chosen because, like you said, it's really different than a lot of other systems out there, whether it's DISC or Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or any of those
Yeah.
things. So we really hustled. I ended up walking away 2 weeks 2 years not 2 weeks, 2 years later because, like,
Okay.
I got a job offer and we couldn't find a way to make it sustainable, and I think what I learned over time, because bringing human design to businesses is still one of my favorite parts of what I do, is that, and this is actually pretty related to our design as projectors. Projectors, it's one of the types in human design, and projectors are really here to be invited. So as
Mhm.
much as we might wanna initiate and chase, the best opportunities are often the ones where, like, someone just sees you super clearly and, like, kind of creates a platform for you to do what you do. Think about the way that I was introduced to human design. Somebody saw me, met me, invited me, and that kind of, like, opened a whole new door. So I think where I found the most success with companies in the past is that I often will do an individual session or private session with somebody, and they're really moved by it, and then they go and they're like, I need to bring this to my team, I'm gonna go pitch it." And so, like,
Yeah.
and then they're kind of the ambassador where, like, I don't really have to convince anyone of anything. They've already done the work, and then I come in and share. Like, even I did a podcast earlier, and she's like, "I have to bring this to my team, I'm going to go pitch them." Like, so I have learned that as much as I wanna be like, "This team should invite me in because I'd be amazing there and they need it," like, that's just never how it's worked. It's been working
Yeah.
with one individual who kind of does that heavy lifting. So that did mean that I couldn't build a business around bringing human design to business, especially at an early stage. That's then I kind of broadened my business to just making human design practical and accessible and grounded to the masses, and that's what led to more opportunities. But that was a big lesson for me. I kind of thought I could just pitch people on this mystical system and they would just say yes, and that's definitely not how it manifested for me.
So then for you, like, even present day, is it 'cause, I mean, obviously very much relate, and I kinda straddle I would say I'm still straddling both worlds and knowingly doing that, when it comes to a lot of the mental fitness work or speaking on this topic. I notice, like I just said, I was in New York for the last couple days, like, so I'll just share that experience and some of, I interviewed so and so, and we talked about some of these things, or, I was with Hay House and we were talking about the next book, and we did some mental fitness work with VaynerMedia, and so in that way, then questions come in versus, but I still feel the need, and it's like so hard to like just okay, let's look at the network and reach out, just stay connected and like, but that's the old programming. So I'm like, what helped you in that as you really embraced and transitioned into kind of really stepping into your design?
Well, I think it was just like all experimentation. I think that
Okay.
like learning that I was a projector and here to be invited, that felt very disempowering for me at first because I was like, how in the world do I find any clients or anything when I'm just here to be invited? And
Yeah.
I learned that my biggest job is just to make myself visible. Like, I've just
Mm.
got to share. And like, honestly, it's so annoying at times. Like, I started sharing on Instagram. I'm like, I don't want to do this. This feels so vulnerable. But like, then people started engaging. And then, like, I was like, whoa, this is so fun. Like, who are these people? And I'm like, creating value for them. And there were like conversations. And so then I made it my job not to know who I thought I should work with, but rather just like share myself in the biggest, most authentic ways and letting the right people come to me. And I guess I've
Okay.
just had enough experiences of being with people and trying to convince them of my worth and being with people that already see it clearly that I'm like, I just choose the latter. Like I've done
Yeah.
it both ways. And like even with the book experience, it's like I met with a lot of publishers and I honestly really liked all of them. But there was one publisher, HarperCollins, I ended up going with, who the woman who bought the book reached out to me 5 months before I turned in the proposal and was like, "Are you writing a book? Because you really need to. Like, we'd love to work with you." And so, like, it was just
Mm.
so funny. Like, she reached out, she invited me to write a book. I was already working on it. Then I met with these 8 people, like, and it was just like, and there
Yeah.
was one that stood out, and it was the one that saw me clearly at the beginning because, like, it was just like the flow was so different. And so, I guess I just think I've had enough experiences in my life that, like, as tempted as I still am to initiate and reach out, which I sometimes for sure do, I just know the best things come when I just, like, share, 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 and let the right people recognize me and invite me in.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good reminder. Just so I don't annoy the rest of the audience that who are not projectors, we should because everyone who's a projector is like, yeah, 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 that's
Tell me
me. I
about it, yeah.
guaranteed, right? Because I that's me on the other side of listening to these conversations. Can you just give us a bit of a high level of the other, you know, classes or what's the proper language? I'm
Types.
blanking on type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other types.
So in human design, there are 5 types. You can look yours up at humandesignblueprint.com. The types
Yes.
are manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. You know, briefly, manifesting generators are very multi-passionate creators and doers. These are often my clients that are like, I have a dance studio, I'm a lawyer, like I'm like, opening a restaurant on the side. Like they just are so multidimensional and can feel very confined if they have to stick to one linear path. Not really people that are meant to niche down. They're also incredibly fast. They can bring ideas to life faster than most people. So a big lesson for them is not expecting others to move at their speed.
Mm,
And, the more lit up they are and the more they kind of give themselves permission to shape, shift, and evolve, like the more they kind of light up the world around them. Their energy and excitement are both so infectious.
yeah.
Then we've got generators, which are also very natural doers. They've got so much capacity to make things happen when they feel genuine excitement by what they're doing. And I always say nothing kind of beat being around a lit up generator because it's just like the most exciting, enthusiastic energy to be around. I would say a big lesson for generators to learn is a lesson of boundaries because they have such capacity, they can end up caring so much. And so, really kind of beginning to learn that just because they can do something doesn't mean they should. And having a lot
Mm,
of discernment of kind of where they direct their very precious, powerful energy. Both of those types are incredibly magnetic. Here to kind of let opportunities come, see what naturally sparks their gut. There are projectors like you and I. Projectors are very natural leaders, teachers, guides, askers. They're so good at seeing other people and making them feel so known. So good at just offering insights that can really transform. I think that projector energy is meant to ebb and flow. So you and I are not really meant to kind of hustle up from like sun up to sundown. Like I think we're really meant to create space and breaks and pause into our days and really kind of disentangle our worth from how hard we're working and how much we're doing. Our
yeah.
gift is so much in our perspective and how we see, and honestly, ability to ask the right question.
Yeah. Well,
Eh,
just on this one, like real life practical use that again, this is where I would have never done this before. Just back from New York, it was busy, it's fast paced, a lot of meetings. I strategically, because of the human design, blocked time this morning to just kind of recharge and debrief myself, like
So
really
good.
think about the days before. Whereas historically, I would have just left all that time open and probably would have filled up with meetings, or I would have set a task to like work on something else. And like this is where, for me, why it's so invaluable to have this information because of now, here I am during this interview and I feel recharged and I don't
Yeah.
feel like I'm kind of still, depleted from, even though it was a beautiful time in the city, just it took a lot, it was a lot of energy to have those conversations. So
Mhm.
sorry, I didn't want
No,
to
I
interrupt,
love
but it's just,
it. No, but
yeah,
that is a very practical piece of like, I feel like projectors, one of the biggest challenges for me is I used to feel like even rest had to be productive. It's like, okay,
yeah,
what podcast can I listen to? What course can I take? What laundry can I fold? Whatever the thing is. And I think human design has really encouraged me to make time to be intentionally unproductive. To like, it's okay
yeah,
to like do the least productive thing, like whether that is like laying down and doing nothing or reading fiction or whatever it is. And um, yeah, that's a big lesson. So I love hearing you
yeah,
creating that space because it's very tempting for us as projectors to kind of fill every moment when space
yeah,
is the thing that actually allows our energy to come alive and our creativity and our efficiency and our insights and all the things.
yeah,
So building those moments into your day wherever you can. Then, and as we talked about, projectors are really here to be invited. This is not a passive strategy. Like we are here to make ourselves visible and put ourselves out there, but often kind of sharing in a more broad way and allowing the right people to resonate tends to be a more fruitful strategy than like choosing the people that we want to be recognized by. I will say one of
mhm,
the hardest lessons and important ones is that the people that we want to see us are not always the ones that do. And so as it's annoying, you know?
yes, I know.
But I think part of the work of making ourselves visible is allowing the right people to kind of see us clearly without needing to be
Yeah,
convinced.
yeah,
Then we've got manifestors. Manifestors are very innovative, very disruptive, really good at kind of starting new things, bringing new ideas to life, treading their own path, like doing things differently. These are people that often need a lot of freedom, autonomy, control to kind of do things their way. So being in positions where they're able to be free, their energy is very bursty. They can have periods where they're super on fire, followed by periods where they've got to be alone. And so really kind of honoring both of those seasons. And they are here to make the first move. to kind of initiate and kickstart things when they feel that urge. The final type is a reflector. This is the rarest type. These are people that are so sensitive to their environment. And this is true for you too. So you might feel elements of this, but they have to be such ruthless curators of where they spend time and who they spend time with because they just feel it deeply. And we call them evaluators in the context of business because reflectors just see, sense, and feel things that most people miss. And so being in
Yeah.
positions where their perspective is really asked for and invited in. And the last piece that I'll share, and again, you might resonate with pieces of this too, but reflectors are super fluid people. Like different seasons of life and different communities and different jobs will pull out different parts of them. So their job is not to show up consistently and like in one fixed, contained way, but to really honor the fact that there are so many versions of them that are meant to come out and really kind of allowing themselves to explore all of them.
Oh, yeah, I mean, again, yes, yes, yes. But and these are the things, again, like on my side, there are kind of multiple arms to at least the businesses that I'm running. There's the media, there's the podcasts, of course, and the books and so forth. There's the corporate stuff and consulting and they're all just to your point, like they for me, they ebb and flow. And I really had to learn to be okay with the uncertainty of all of these different arms and channels and that, one time, for maybe a few months, one will be up and then it'll be down and being diverse enough to be okay with that. But before I knew all like that could be terrifying and create a lot of stress, a lot of financial stress. And I, surprise, surprise, when you like start to learn this stuff a little bit more and just relax, like stuff starts to flow again. And a lot of those things are usually taken care of, but again, I find I mean, everyone listen, I will put the links in the show notes, like, at the very least, you have to go get your design
Yeah.
at, Erin's website. The second step, for sure, buy the book. And then, of course, there's elements to, get a larger chart reading as well from you
Yeah.
at a very, very, accessible price point as well. Like, I can't I mean, like, you're not paying me to say any of this, like, it's so practical and
I
it's
know.
so useful.
I know.
So useful.
It is so useful. And I think that it is, once you kind of know it about yourself, it is hard to not be like, wait, shouldn't everybody know this? And like,
Oh,
again, I know that no system is for everybody. And I will never try to convince people that human design is the way or that it's true or honestly any of them. But it is just really useful to be like, wait, how am I
yeah.
doing things? Could I do things in a way that feels more aligned? And I think like we talked about, human design just tends to like bring a lot of clarity to where things are working in our lives and where things are not. And to me, it feels like when things are not working or out of flow, like I return to my design and it just becomes so clear why they're not working. It's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah, I'm doing that again. Oh, I'm trying to do this." And, like, I just love having it
Yeah.
written on paper in front of me so I can just, like, choose another path. And so and it's honestly like, as a dad, like, as a partner, like, all the things, like, I use it with my daughters and my husband and my family. Like, it is such a
Yeah.
powerful tool to not only understand ourselves, but to understand the people that we're working with because it really transforms our lives when we just, like, stop expecting others to be like us.
Yeah. Why don't we just so we can provide some other use cases as well? I mean, whether this is I mean, of course, you can, like, don't name names or anything like that, but just with some of the clients that you've worked with or, like you said, personally with, like, your kids and so forth, like, just help paint some other, pictures. I mean, I'm providing a bunch of business examples, but it's
Yeah.
literally across everything.
Across everything.
So
Yeah, so, like, one example that comes up, I'm married to a generator, and
okay.
generators are very gut-driven people, so are manifesting generators, and this means that one of the best ways to communicate with them when making decisions is to ask them very specific yes, no question. Because if you ask them a question like, "Do you wanna do this or this? Go here or here?" It basically allows them to kinda bypass their head and get them straight into their gut. And so, really simple day-to-day examples with my husband, if I ask him what he wants to eat for dinner, it's like blank stare. But do you wanna, like, go out or cook at home? Do you need this or this? It's like, that's that, Do you wanna book this Airbnb? Yeah. This hotel? Yeah. Like, it's so clear when communicated to in the proper way, and
Yeah.
I do this in sessions all the time where I'll sit with, say, a generator who is kind of mulling over a decision. They're talking about all the possibilities and all the potential implications and all the things, and then I'll ask, "Do you wanna do it?" They're like, "No." Like, they actually very clearly know the answer, they just haven't been asked in the right way, so that's one big example I've
Yeah.
noticed. Another example that comes to mind, and I think I tell this story in my book, but I was sitting with a dad who was a generator as well, and he was feeling very frustrated with his teenage daughter. And I was like, "Well, what's going on?" He's like, "Well, like she's trying softball and she's doing lacrosse and she's doing volleyball and like now she's swimming and like she has to choose a thing and stick with it." Like that was his design. His design was around like mastery and commitment. And I looked up her design. I was like, "Oh, she's a manifesting generator." I was like, "She's meant to try on all the things and let go." Like
Yeah.
she's doing her design so perfectly. And so he realized that so much of that frustration was born not from her being non-committal, but from them being different. What he perceived
Yeah.
as flakiness was her need for variety,
Yeah. Well, and
and
as a parent, it's like how much of a superpower unlock is that to know your kids,
it is
type and
so
then be able
wild.
to actually flow with them and not create all this weird resistance and like it's like creates tension. I mean, it's such an unlock.
It is such an unlock, and even, my 9-month-old, she's obviously super young, she's a manifester. But manifestors, like I said, crave freedom, they're super powerful people, and when she was 2 months old, she started flipping over, which is pretty early to flip over, and she would only sleep on her belly, and she was, like, in her belly in her swaddle, which is obviously not safe, and I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta, like, turn her back over," and then, like, she has to sleep on her back, the internet says she has to sleep on her back, and I called my pediatrician. I was like, "What do I do? She's flipping over." And she was like, "You let her do what she wants to do." And I was just like, and it was just such a lesson for me because so much of being a manifestor is like just doing your own thing. And I was like, I've got to like let her do her own thing. And I even sat with somebody, I think last week, who had a manifestor teenage daughter. And the mother was trying to like micromanage the audition for this art school. And like the daughter was really resentful. And finally the daughter was like, just let me do my thing. Like, get out of my way. I'm going to do it unlike anyone else. Like, just give me freedom. And she's like, right, you're a manifestor. Sorry, stepping back, do your thing. And so
Yeah.
it's just such an amazing tool to help us engage with people in a way
Yeah.
that is so true to them and also really respectful of us. Like another example for me and you is that, and I don't know if this is true for you, but like projectors tend to love recognition. It feels really good when people see us clearly. And so that means one
Oh
of
yeah.
our most loved love languages is words of affirmation. And so like, it's funny. I'm married to somebody who like could care less about words of affirmation. I'm like, "You're amazing. You're doing this." And he's just like, he just does not even care. It's like
Yeah.
there's so many other ways for me to show love to him. But for me, I know that that's such a way to reach me because it makes me feel so seen. So it's helpful for me to know that so I can articulate to him how important that is to me, even if he doesn't have that same need.
Yeah. It's so important. And I think it's so interesting to just have the conversation, especially with your partner. I mean, to do get your profile and just have a chat. And I am willing to bet that it'll just be a really interesting conversation and a lot of, oh, okay. And then the like use cases come up or past experiences, like, well, that's probably where things kind of went off the rails and
Yeah.
we can see it now, right? Like, and just I think you said it earlier, but just like approach all the stuff with curiosity and like like what's the worst that can happen? You're probably gonna get some moments of like aha and some clarity and so forth with yourself, but then of course people around you. And the other thing I'll say about human design that I really notice, I mean, of course you can go very deep
Of
and a
course.
lot of
Yeah.
your work is that as well. But I do find having again I was in sales in the corporate world at one point, and again, like there's so many companies that come in with these assessments and like color theories and all these things, and it's like, "Hey, you've gotta think of your customer in this profile and this," and but there's like 1,000 things. Like, I always remember leaving those seminars being, "I'm not gonna remember any of this." Like, how po but I feel like with human design that, like, you remember the type, and there's, like, a couple, you know, I don't wanna say buzzy, but, like, a couple
Yeah.
key prominent, like, characteristics that it's not like you need a cheat sheet, like, written on your arm or something like that, right? And then, of course, you can go deeper,
You
but
can always go deeper, but what's so funny is that I feel like I'll do workshops, or I used to like long ago, where I would dive into all these pieces of the chart, and then I would be like, "And what do you remember?" And it was like the most basic stuff, the stuff that is like the most actual. It's like the type, the strategy, the authority, which is
yeah,
around like how you use your energy, how you create opportunities, how you make decisions. So it's not to diminish the other things. Like you said, so much of my work is educating people on those things and how to use them, but the 3 pieces that are the most important are your type, strategy, and authority, because when you align with those, how you use your energy, how you create opportunities, how you make decisions, everything else snaps into alignment and just kind of makes your life easier. So I do find, and I've been reminded of this over and over again, like the simplest information is often the most impactful. And that was probably the
yeah,
hardest part of writing the book, was that I wrote many chapters, almost 200 pages that never made it into the book. and yet
Yeah.
having to make the choice of like, what is the information that will really help people the most, and how can I just prioritize that?
Well, you've definitely done it. I mean, I can feel it in the book. It's an easy read. I feel like everything that needs to be in there is in there. It's just, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, in the sense of, I mean, I feel like you've really practiced what you preach essentially in writing the book. Again, I know it's probably challenging to get there, like it always is, but as the reader or
Yeah.
consumer of this book, you can feel that. So big virtual high fives to that. I do want to ask you about AI and
Mhm.
technology and are like, what's your take? And I can give kind of how I've been using it as well. But I'm just curious from your perspective, are you using AI in this at all? Like, how do you see this going and so forth?
Yeah, well, AI, like, I think what's hard for me about AI is that, like, it's just, like, changing everything very quickly. It's kind of hard to keep up, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like, just, like, total jobs are eliminated. Like, I was with a friend who's a copywriter the other week, and she's like, "Wait, nobody's hiring me anymore." I was like, "God,
Yeah.
happening so quickly." So, yes, I am absolutely using AI. I think that it's hard to, um not do that right now, It
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
like it's which I don't know if I love or not. I think honestly the biggest thing that I think about, which is unrelated to my work, is I can really start to see the ways in which we can become dumber when we are
Yeah.
delegating everything to AI in a way that isn't requiring us to think. And
Yeah.
so I
There's
think
studies that are coming out, like I think out of Harvard right now, showing that like literally people's like brain volume of some sort is just diminishing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, that's I think the
It's
part that I'm becoming most conscious of, like, how do I really, like, use it in a way that gives me more space to be with my kids and make things happen
yeah.
well and easier, and also, like, in a way that I'm not delegating the most important work. And so, like,
Yeah.
I think that's been my balance. I think, a big question around AI is that for so long, I've been in the information business. Like our business was primarily built on selling these customized guides. We still do. We sold over 45,000 of them. Like it's just been like some like a written reading about your human design. You can now
Yeah.
go in a chat GPT and be like, tell me everything about being this person. Like, and have a conversation. So like you can actually access that information far easier than you ever were able to before. And even when it first came out a year ago or whatever, like the information was pretty awful. And I would say it's so much better than it was, but still, like, I read those things and I'm like, "Ah," like, I just, like, I don't
Yeah.
find the descriptions as compelling or useful as they could be, but I think that's transforming a lot, where information is
Yeah.
so much easier, so much more accessible, and I think in many ways how that's transforming our business is, what I've always been drawn to with human design, and this is true in the book, is, like, not just how much information can we learn, but how can we actually use it? Like, how can
Mhm.
we actually use it to transform our careers and transform our relationships with our kids and make decisions better? And so it feels like so much of the work of our business is really now around using the information. And so it's less about like,
Yeah.
let me just do an information download and give you all this stuff because like you can find that. Like I don't actually have to be the place where you're getting it, but I will teach you how to use it because I've sat with over 4,000 people in sessions. I've been doing this for a decade. Like there's even like if you tell the book is so full of stories, but like if you ask AI to like give you a case study of something, like they're just not great. They probably are going
Yeah.
to become great. You know what I mean? Like that's to say that we're at the beginning.
Well, I agree. I mean, and because I asked for a reason because I feel like we're forever for all of this stuff that we're like in an extreme kind of pendulum swing and that we're going to swing back at one point, definitely in the sense that we're human beings that like we need human connection. And
Yeah.
again, like coming back from New York, like there's nothing like I've done work with all of the people that I've seen there. One person from VaynerMedia, I mean, I've known her for 7 years. It's the first time we've ever met in person, and it just, like, hits differently, right?
So different.
And even if it's virtual, but, like, my point is with a human being I
Yeah.
is the difference because I mean, I do have a Chat GPT, like, I guess, agent or conversation where I've uploaded my profile, my human design, and I've uploaded my gene keys, and I'll just, if I'm faced with a situation or something, I'll ask it a question. I'm like, "Hey, like, how should I think about this based on what you know about my human design?" But it doesn't have it's helpful,
Yeah,
But I mean, this is where I see the value in like the hybrid, like you still need to talk to humans and
you
like where
do.
you're speaking with thousands of people in like
Yeah,
real use cases.
yeah,
I think I think we're gonna, at least for a while, probably live in a bit of a hybrid model, and it's like you
that's
leverage
just it.
certain tools for certain things,
Yeah. Oh, well, I think it's so
right?
interesting because, like, it is kind of a scary time in many ways, or it can be, because like, what is
Yeah,
going on? This is all happening so quickly, and, like, our work is all changing. And I do think it is reminding us of, like, the need for in-person work and connection more than anything before. There's a guy that I follow who teaches a lot about online entrepreneurship. His name is Justin Welsh, and it's funny hearing him talk because he's just like, it's so funny that, like, with all this happening, my desire is to just go smaller and deeper. It's, like, not
yeah,
to scale, it's, like, how can I, like, create memberships and communities and, like, in-person events, and I was like, I actually love that that is the response because that does feel
yeah,
like so much of what so many of us are craving. So,
yeah,
yeah, it is a weird time, and I will just say also, I think with my experience with AI is I find that it can be really useful at kind of, like, refining things in a way that makes my process quicker, but I just haven't yet and don't honestly really want to have the experience where I'm just like, "Generate this thing." It's more like, "Let me
yeah,
just, like, generate the thing and then, like, help me refine this and tighten it up, and, like, then I'll just keep moving." And so, like, that has been the most effective process for me, and it also just
yeah,
feels better, like,
yeah, totally,
as a
totally.
process. You know, I just
Yeah, I
I'm like,
agree.
I'm not at a point where I'm like, "Do the thing," and, like, I'm like, I can't really, like, and it's not to say it's bad, like, again, I want people's lives to be easier, I want them to have more time to spend with their family and whatever they wanna do, but I think that I have to find a way to use it that makes my life easier, but also really still feels like me. And I think
Yeah,
I don't and this is beyond human design, but I think what I'm struggling with right now is that, like, everybody sounds the exact same.
yeah, yeah.
It's everybody's
You're right.
emails, everybody's posts. I'm just like, we've lost it. We've, like, lost the thread here.
Yeah,
Like, I just, like, I want the typos. Like, I wanna know what you sound like versus this person. And literally everybody there's a newsletter. I love this when I know her. And I just find that I'm, like, so bored by her emails now because I'm like, they're just all everything is the same.
yeah. I think I again, I mean, I we're somewhat early, but I don't think we're that far off of seeing a shift around like exactly what you're saying. It's like, okay, that's like we went all in. That's enough. Like we're human beings. Everyone's different. Like let's really tap into our unique kind of characteristics and tone and voice and oh, okay.
I have a child that just burst in. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Uh, Last question for you though, or questions, I guess, or topic. What are some of your just non-negotiable, what I call mental fitness that like just keep your mind clear, or when you need a primer, prime the mind? Like, what are some of those go-to practices and rituals and so forth?
I would say honestly, like, the only I feel like the practice that is the most effective for me is just, like, time away from any stimulation and just, like, it doesn't always have to be, like, meditation, but I do
Yeah.
find that when I'm feeling, like, pessimistic or, disconnected or any of the things, when I just, like, close my eyes and return to myself, it feels like I pretty immediately get perspective.
Mm,
So, like, and I think I can become clear when there's, like, a story that I'm telling myself that isn't useful or there's a narrative I'm stuck on or whatever. So, I think that I have tried many different things, but I do feel like just shutting out other stimulation and returning to myself is kind of the one that's the most tried and true for me. Like,
yeah.
I would say, like, probably the non-negotiable, and this is one that I think that I can keep working on, is just around my boundaries with technology. I asked on Instagram the other day, I was like, "What are people's boundaries?" And, like, I was just so surprised that basically everybody was like, "Don't have any, need help." And I was like, "We, like, need boundaries here. This thing is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this like." And so I think that that's something that I'm just becoming more conscious of because, like, I've never had, like, a core life moment with my phone. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like
yeah,
I'm ever like, "God, that moment that I was looking at my phone and I discovered this is what I'll remember forever." That's just, like, not does not doesn't lead to any of the
yeah.
things. It's a different world, and so I think that I'm just trying to I think I'm probably the most healthiest and at my best mentally when I have really strong boundaries with my phone.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but for you, I mean, so obviously a lot of your business is online and leverages social and so forth. So, but they're all just tools, right?
Yeah.
It's not like our core identity and so forth. So I think that's I mean, helpful for and frankly, anyone listening,
Yeah.
and very useful. But just on the, and this is not to provide prescriptions to anyone.
Yeah.
It just gives people ideas, because everyone's different, as you know. But to clear your mind, and when you like need to kind of recenter, reset, are there specific, like, are you journaling? Are you going for walks in nature, or is that shift, or
I
like
think that
what really
yeah.
works?
Well, for sure, I think, like, moving my body, I would say
Yeah.
probably dancing is the most effective
Mm,
one. I think just, like, letting things move, it's, like, really hard for me to not feel like have more perspective after I dance. So I would say
yeah.
dance, being in nature, closing my eyes and meditating and being
Mm,
away from my phone. But it's like it is so easy for me to spin out about a thing, and then again, the minute I step away and move my body or get a little bit of perspective, it becomes a lot clearer. So I
yeah.
think that it's a lesson for me. Like I don't need to like go deeper into that thing. If I notice myself going down an unhelpful path, to just kind of like put it all away and step away, whether it's to dance or to walk or to articulate very openly to my husband what I'm feeling, which I also find helps,
Yeah.
and like speak it out. I love journaling. I will say that I am having a hard time finding the space to journal in my current season of life with my little ones. They wake me up and put me to bed. I just like, I don't
Come
know.
crashing through the door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crashing through the door. So like I think that
Yeah.
journaling has been really helpful in the past. So has poetry, but I have struggled to find that in this current season. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
more realistic to be like a time away from everyone, just closing my eyes, going for a walk, dancing.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Thank you a million times over for, I mean, not just this conversation, but just for saying yes to the calling, so many years ago, and following your path. And there's so many beautiful stories in the book. Obviously, we didn't have a chance to cover, but I think just provide a little bit more color to, it wasn't a straight line to what you're doing, and
Yeah.
all of this impact. Like, there were, many ups and downs and so forth that you had to navigate, just like any human being does. And you do such a good job just being honest, I think, and sharing the real situation, and so forth. So I guess I'll leave it. I'll put the links in the in the show notes. But is there like one piece of advice or guidance that you would leave to, let's say someone they go to your site, they fill out their information, they get their chart, like, any advice on just even how to approach it, or like the perspective to take, maybe?
Yes. Well, I think the perspective to take is like you always know best. So like read and listen. But again, I think the question to ask yourself is like, does this feel useful? And
Yeah.
like as you explore each piece, and if it doesn't, throw it out the window, keep moving. If it does, like go a little bit deeper. And so I think again, approaching it not as like this thing knows more about me than me, but like, does this feel like a useful thing to integrate into my life? And what you might find, I think what a lot of us find is that, like you said, it gives us language for things we've always known and haven't really stepped into, and it gives us the tools to actually step into it in whatever part of our lives. So I would just approach it openly, but also like not as blanket truth. Like this is a thing to be experimented with and played with. And the book is such a beautiful way to kind of really learn how this each part of your chart can be applicable to the most important parts of your life. And we sell custom guides and all that too.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with AutoQuote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Hi, I'm Chris Gethard, and I'm very excited to tell you about Beautiful Anonymous, a podcast where I talk to random people on the phone. I tweet out a phone number, thousands of people try to call. I talk to one of them, they stay anonymous, I can't hang up, that's all the rules. I never know what's going to happen. We get serious ones. I've talked with meth dealers on their way to prison. I've talked to people who survived mass shootings. Crazy funny ones. I talked to a guy with a goose laugh, somebody who dresses up as a pirate on the weekends. I never know what's going to happen. It's a great show. Subscribe today, Beautiful Anonymous.